All right. 10 o'clock, call meeting to order. Roll call.
Okay, Lee,
Here.
Mike Morgan,
Here.
Stephanie, Randy,
Here.
Teresa, Mike Marlowe,
Here.
Ed, Rondlin,
Here.
Cole,
Here.
and I believe I see Commissioner Lerner there as our committee liaison.
Perfect. All right. Welcome everybody to this quarter's meeting, July 14th, starting at 10 a.m. We'll just go ahead and get on going. And discussion of possible action to excuse any committee members' absences. Do we have any there? I know we have one public member is missing, but
We've got
two
missing, and I don't think we've heard anything either way.
fair enough. All right, number 4, ratification of the minutes of the April 21st, 2025 meeting. They were on the website. They were sent out to everybody. Did anybody have any modifications to make to that meeting? Hearing none, those will stand ratified. General comments from visitors or written comments on non-agenda items. Is there anybody? I know we had some comments that are going to be part of an agenda item later. Did we have anybody else sign up for comments?
I haven't received any.
All right, good. I had to look over at Shannon there. All right, reports from subcommittees. Education, Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, so we did meet a few weeks ago, talked again about the proctoring requirements, and really didn't have much input, or it definitely didn't recommend any changes or anything to what they've, as they were written. So I guess that's moving forward. We did talk about requiring the completion of coursework prior to beginning practicum. And we think that's worth pursuing. We didn't come up with a hard and fast number, but it's something that we agree needs to be discussed, and if we want to move forward with that. I guess that would be done in the full committee. And the other thing we talked about is the delivery method of the legal and ethics. And we're a little bit divided there, but I think the majority was in favor of recommending it be done in class or
Online.
but not just
Correspondence.
yeah, exactly. So we think that's probably a good idea. I think it'd give people a better environment, maybe force them to learn a little bit more than the course that they can simply rush through and all. So we think that's worth pursuing. That's pretty much what we discussed.
And all of those are on agenda items, so we'll address those as they come up as well. Standards of practice, Mr. Baker.
Yes, our last meeting was quite productive. We almost finished. We had a very long meeting where we tried to go through the rest of the standards of practice, and we got through everything except optional systems. So we decided to go ahead and table those and come back at our next meeting, finish up the optional systems. Then we will have a summary of all the changes that we propose so we can review it, make any additions, and hopefully present it to the committee in October. Okay, and then I know we have another agenda item we'll get to when we get to number 12.
And just for informational purposes, I know Randy said that, ideally some proposals, the proposal for the review will come out in October. That is not the end all be all. I'm saying this more for anybody, listening in. It is a process. Start the proposals, and then we'll go through a process where all committee members and public can go through. Probably won't be proposed for actual approval until January or the April meeting. So we still have time, plenty of time for input, but definitely if you have input for the SOPs, please get involved. All right. So with that, staff reports, executive division.
Oh, good morning.
Betsy Buckholz, Executive Director. I have just a few things that I'll mention. One specific to inspectors, and that is that we will have a fall application season for new members. So we will announce that with the newsletter, but that's kind of our timing for that. Say there.
Just, will there be a spot on the website for people who want to apply, or how, anybody who's interested, how would they do that?
We have, resume, cover letter. We'll explain the application process in an article. It'll be on the website.
Perfect.
Okay. So I was saying that. I was like, this is what we normally do, right, Summer?
Yeah.
Yep. Next, just kind of how we at TREIC are spending our time right now is we are putting a lot of time on legislative implementation. Summer will highlight a few things related to inspectors there. And we are spending most of the rest of our time on implementing a license management system. You've probably heard us refer to this as RAMP or even Acela. Acela is the vendor we've hired to complete this project. We now have an official name for this project, which is the Realm Portal, Real Estate and Appraiser License. Wait, Real Estate and Appraiser Licensing Management Portal, Realm. Okay, so it's easier to use the acronym. I'm pretty good about Realm. Not so good about what it means. So we're really excited about that project. That will allow us to put more online for self-service for license holders and specifically for inspectors. So I think that's going to be a really good thing. It's a big, heavy lift, and we're in kind of the end stages of that. So stay tuned there. The other season we're in is budget season. Creating a budget to send to the commission for the August commission meeting. Our fiscal year is a September through August year. So we're heavy into that. We're seeking a fee increase, but are awaiting word on whether or not we can move forward with that from the governor's office, who kind of just politically says that needs to come through us first before we move forward. So that's where that sits. Is there any questions you have for me on those items or anything else that may be in my wheelhouse? Thanks for being here. Good to see everybody. I'm going to pass it to Summer just for a few legislative items.
Hi, Summer Mandel, Government and Strategic Communications Director for the agency. So the regular session ended on June 2nd, and there is a special session that starts July 21st. There are a couple of real estate industry type things that are in the governor's call for special session. Nothing that applies to inspectors, but if you're interested in industry happenings, you may want to tune in. It's also nothing that would affect the agency and how we do anything. So it really just is of interest for special session. I will update you on the inspector related bill that we had filed. It would require 4 hours of pre-licensing education for apprentice inspectors. So that was HB 3593. It got assigned to a committee, but ultimately it didn't get heard or move any farther than that. But I wouldn't be discouraged. That happens a lot with a lot of bills. We were tracking 453 and only like 53 of those actually became effective. Plus there are like 10,000 bills filed. So you can see it's kind of a microcosm of bills that make it to the finish line. So Abby will go over some rule changes that are related to a different bill, SB 1968, which is sort of the TREIC housekeeping bill, but there's nothing really that is very specific to inspectors. Do y'all have any questions? Okay, great. Thank you.
And I'll just tack on. As Summer mentioned, SB 1968 is our housekeeping bill. As she mentioned, there's nothing that specifically touches inspectors, but there are a few agency-wide changes that I just wanted to mention here. So one change that you'll see in some of the education rules at our August meeting is that in the bill, public schools were exempted as being required to be providers under statute. So currently, if you're an accredited college or university, you're not required to be a provider, be approved to be a provider by the agency. Public high schools got added to that. So as a result, you're going to see some rule changes. All the places that you find that, including some inspector-related education rules, you'll see public high schools being added to that list. The other one I wanted to mention is related to complaint notices. So the bill gave the agency authority, rulemaking authority, to essentially provide complaint notices to essentially other license holders that are affiliated with that particular respondent. So this not only impacted Chapter 1101, where Trella is, it also said that that could apply to Chapter 1102 as well, to inspectors. So we're going to be working with the Enforcement Committee on looking at that particular rule language as we move forward. So just wanted to give you kind of an FYI. Those are the two things that I can think of that kind of apply globally. But if you have any specific questions about that bill or any other rule changes related to bills, let me know.
So I like to address that the sponsors actually get notification that their person they're sponsoring is getting, or a broker, that's an individual broker that works under a separate broker.
Exactly.
Also goes.
Exactly. There's broker associates that could also have or could be impacted by this new language, notifying brokerages if a broker associate receives a complaint, that kind of thing. And as I was saying, there's no more. I had one more that came to mind, which is military licensing. So that applies across the board as well. There's a couple bills actually filed this session that expand or alter the path for those military service members, veterans, and spouses. So there's a rule change coming from that language as well. So that's all I've got.
Okay. Any questions? No? Hearing none. Enforcement.
Good morning, Tony Renteria, Enforcement Staff Attorney and Liaison to the Inspector Committee. We have two cases for this period. The orders were emailed to all the Inspector Committee members. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
And these two weren't clickable. You didn't put the links on.
No, they weren't clickable because we're having a little issue with our website.
Okay.
So I couldn't add a link to it, but I made sure that they were emailed to the to the members.
Yeah, I tried to look them up. We tried to look them up earlier on the website by case number, by date. It wasn't coming up. So
Okay. Hopefully we'll resolve it.
Okay, no, cool. All right. Anybody have any questions for Tony? All right, education and examinations.
Good morning, Jennifer Wheeler for the record. The most recent reports are included in your materials. I'll give you a high-level overview. Fiscal year to date data through May shows that we have approved 4 new inspector qualifying courses and 35 qualifying course renewals. We've also processed 155 inspector CE courses. Our highest volume of applications in general are CE providers and CE courses. Current projections indicate that we will fall a little shy of where we landed in FY 2024 for CE provider submissions, but that it will still keep us above the 3 previous fiscal years. Similar projections indicate that we will be right about the same volume in CE course applications this year as compared to last. Application processing times are stable. We have been able to stay within a 5 to 10 review period for CE course applications, where we have a 15-day processing goal. We've also stayed within 20 to 25 days for inspector qualifying course review, where we have a 30-day processing goal. We are currently accepting applications for the new inspector legal and ethics and standards of practice course, which will be effective on September 1st. So far, we've gotten 3 applications in multiple delivery methods. An article just went out in the June Education Connection newsletter reminding providers to apply. We never have a shortage. We usually have about 13 education providers that offer that course. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Licensing.
Good morning, Denise Sample, Director of Licensing, and my reports start on page 13, and this is data through May of 2025. So on that first initial apps received in the bottom left, you'll see the professional inspector applications, which are the bulk of the type that we get, holding pretty steady, comparable to the previous fiscal year. The next page, page 15, has inspector renewal rates, and that's the one we monitor a little more closely. So you'll see that while the volume, the actually raw number of renewals that have been processed for professional inspectors is lower, the rate is holding steady. That's kind of what we focus on, is that renewal rate. And then you'll see real estate and apprentice following. That next page has the license and registration counts, and kind of towards the bottom half of that table at the top is inspectors and then the active inspectors. So we ended May with about 4,400 total licensed inspectors, 3,600 of those active. So the next page, you'll see that in graphical form. The yellow bar graph shows the inspector numbers. And then that last report for my division is application processing times. And so you'll see kind of in the center, professional inspector, real estate, and apprentice, we are well within the 14 calendar day processing goal. That concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
We were talking about this. How long has it been since we started the new pre-licensing?
Gosh, that was 4 years. Yeah.
Is it 4 already? Dear God, it's been that long. Do
Yes,
we know
21.
like around what license number that started hitting? 24, 25,000, somewhere in that range, maybe? Just curious.
Yeah. We can kind of do an analysis and maybe bring that at the next committee meeting.
Just more of a curiosity than
Yeah.
anything else.
Hey, what are you looking to pull out of that?
Do what?
What are you looking to pull out of that?
No, just when I see disciplinary actions come through.
Yeah, you were thinking the same thing I was. Okay.
Yeah.
And look at those numbers to see if.
Just kind of seeing if there's starts to be a break.
Mhm.
Because it takes a while to find out. I mean, the pre-license, going through that pre-licensure process was very tedious and
Right.
controversial thing in many respects. And so like to be able to find out if there's going to be any type of correlation between disciplinary actions with the new pre-licensure versus the way it was done previously, just to see, just as another way to identify if that may need to be addressed at a future date.
It'd also to be interesting to see the renewal rate on that. Like if they actually stick around.
It's possible too.
Yeah.
But that may also have a lot more to do with the market at the time, they went in. I mean,
Of course.
in 2008, we were at our lowest point. I mean, we just got flooded from that point because that was our lowest number, and then everybody just went in.
Mhm.
But we cycled through quite a bit. Okay, cool. All right. Item number 8, discussion possible action regarding requirements under 22 TAC. Ms. Abby?
So I think this will be, hopefully, knock on wood, the last time you will see these rules for the foreseeable future.
Promises.
I know, I shouldn't say that. But again, as a reminder, these have been both through ESAC and you all. There were really 2 main changes to these sets of rules. One was modifying some language to make it a little broader with regard to verifying identity of a student. The second was to remove proctoring language or requirements in the rule. This applied to, real estate, broker and agent courses, as well as inspector courses. And so these went through the process. ESAC recommended some changes, so the process started over again, which is why you've seen it so many times. We proposed the changes at the May commission meeting. They went out for public comment. What you have in your materials are the comments we received. I will let you know that ESAC reviewed all these comments at their July meeting. They did not have any changes as a result of the comments, and they recommended that these move forward for possible adoption at the August commission meeting. So I will leave you with that. You really can do you can have 3 choices. You can recommend they move forward without changes. You can recommend that changes are made, or you can have no recommendation that you don't want them to move forward. Those last 2 are really the middle option. If you do have changes, this would come likely back on the agenda again. So those are your options.
Did anybody see any changes they wanted to make to any of this? I would entertain a motion to recommend for adoption.
Recommend we adopt these things.
Second.
Motion made. Second. Any other discussion on this? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion approved. Item number 9, discussion possible action regarding requiring completion of coursework prior to beginning the Texas practicum. So this came as a result of some comments that were made previously about education providers asking or having the inspectors go and do their practicum before they actually got their education, which is kind of backwards. The whole idea, and I guess what most of us thought when we were going through this process and creating this process, so that people would get the education and then go do the practicum to apply that education to the actual inspections. But apparently there is a loophole that does not specify that that has to be done in a certain time frame. So in theory, and apparently in practice, what is happening on occasion is that people are trying to take the practicum before they actually have the education, which presents itself a whole different problem. So the thought process was to, and I don't know how we would word this in a rule, but to require that the practicum be done after the education be done was the idea. So wanted to discuss that.
And
Don't
so,
everybody talk about this.
so I'll just add, so this, as you heard, this is something the education subcommittee discussed and ultimately recommended that we look at a rule change to require coursework to be completed prior to the practicum. And so therefore it's on the agenda for discussion today.
Whether it's 100% completed before they begin the practicum or not, I don't know if that's necessary, but I think some number 75, 80% complete before they start the practicum is, I think we need to move forward with something.
I mean, that's the whole point of the practicum, is to apply what you
Exactly.
learned in the classroom. I think we may run into a problem if we try to play the 75 or 80% game, because then it's like, well, what did they learn? What did they not learn? What's that
Yeah,
last
sure, it's 75%.
75%, you know? So,
Yeah, because if you haven't done the classwork, how are you even going to write the report?
right.
And that's part of the practice.
That's part of the practicum. At least it's supposed to be. That you do the full inspection, write the report, start to finish. That's the whole idea. So,
I mean, I get it from the education providers and the students' point that, you know, hey, there's a practicum available, get it done.
sure.
I get it. But we need, you know, it is a practical application of what you've learned. So,
Okay.
I think complete the coursework and then do your practicum. I think
Right.
that, I mean, it's cut and dry
I would
and
agree with that. Yeah. Anybody else have any input on that? So can we, for the next meeting, can we propose that as a rule? Put something together?
Yeah, so I think what we would plan on doing is drafting something, take it to the education subcommittee
Okay.
to look at, and then see if they have tweaks, like the language, and then from there could present it on the next agenda item as a draft.
Cool. So there it'll come to you, and then it comes to our October meeting for proposal, and then in theory gets proposed for adoption in January. At our January commission's February.
Yes, if
If it
everything-
goes through.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
so you better write it correctly. the
That's
first
right. Let's mess it up. All right. Item number 10, discussion possible action regarding delivery methods for the inspector of legal and ethics and SOP review course. So I'll let you start on that since you guys were.
Yeah. Like I say, most of us thought it was a good idea. One of us, I won't name names, was not in favor. But I do think forcing people to sit through an 8-hour course rather than just take some kind of correspondence course where they don't really have to learn. I think it's a good idea to put them in the best situation possible to, be able to absorb some of this, because there's a lot of people who are not getting it. And honestly, I think it's, sometimes the old timers, we keep seeing these people not using the right inspection report.
Yep.
form and, stuff. It's just crazy. We gotta figure out a way to get this through to people. And I think, somehow forcing them to sit through a course may be the way to accomplish this.
And it's only 8 hours out of your 32 hours. And you can do it in the classroom, you can do it online. But I think what we're seeing, we're seeing these complaints, just repetitive, the wrong form, the wrong order, just so many of the things that we learn when we sit in the legal and ethics. And so this actually came up with me and Lee and Shannon and TREIC staff when we were writing the new LESOP course, is figuring out how to actually get it to the people. And think about it, you take defensive driving online, it's just like taking legal and ethics online. What do? You open it up in a tab, and then you go to a new tab and you browse and look at something else, and then you go back and you click. And so you can do that until you're done, and then you can go take the test. And then another thing, some of these newer inspectors that did their own thing, didn't apprentice with anybody, out on their own, if they're sitting and listening to an old timer or somebody else, maybe they're getting a real world, this happened to me, this is how we approached it, or if this happens. So we just really thought, from the LESOP, then we moved to the education subcommittee, that 8 hours, that physically attending a class for 8 hours is not unreasonable for your professional license.
Every 2 years.
Okay, so yeah, with the webinar format, what's to prevent someone from just having that tab off to the side to begin with and still doing the same thing?
And you have to have your
You see
screen
them.
on.
You're watching it. They're watching you as an educator. You have.
Oh yeah, you can see me that I'm sitting there, but you can't see what I'm doing on my screen.
True.
Yeah, I could be sitting there doing whatever.
It's usually pretty obvious if you're teaching a Zoom class.
Yeah.
So somebody, and you can see, got their head down. It's a lot more noticeable when you're teaching a class.
We're not going to get 100%.
Of course not.
But
Of course.
hey, if we improve it.
But I don't think it's going to improve anything. People learn the way they learn, right?
Or don't.
Okay, yes, of course.
True.
Some people, online course where you just go through it at your own pace is great. Some people may need 2 hours on the extreme to absorb that information. Some people may need 10 or 15 to absorb that information. Depends on how they learn. So now you're taking that away from them, and just forcing someone into that, or taking away an option, I don't think is a good idea.
Well, what's to prevent somebody from paying their kid $20 to do it for them too? Correspondence.
Well, we're taking away the
They're
ID
learning.
requirements, so why can't I have my kids sit there, and besides the fact my kids tend to be pretty obvious, but why can't I have one of my other inspectors sit there and take the webinar course for me?
But we're asked, because they see your face.
But we're taking away the ID requirement. I go to a
It's
class,
8 hours.
they don't know me.
You've got 24 hours to absorb the way you absorb.
Yeah.
This is, I think, the most important part of being an inspector. And we see these complaints coming in and they're the same and it's repetitive. And I've started, when a complaint comes in, I've started looking at their education history just to kind of see, what kind of legal and ethics do they take? And I haven't dove real deep into it, but I'm guessing that if we really went back and looked at their history, these repeat complaints are probably a correspondence, legal and ethics, or a let me cram my 32 hours in the last week before my license expires. And so the purpose behind this is to just help bring some professionalism into our industry to where we know that this information that's important is getting disseminated. Instead of somebody still using a TREIC 7.5, they'll go, oh, well, I've never paid attention that form changed 2 years ago or 3 years ago now. And, maybe they'll go update their software.
A handwritten 7.2.
which I've seen as well.
I have too. But before we jump into this, you brought up a good point. Where did they get their training when they're screwing up? We need to, you feel that it's correspondence courses, but have we looked at it? Have
I'm
we pulled
starting
that?
to as they come in.
Yeah, but if we
gonna
went
help.
back, I don't know how long it would take to start to see a trend. But is it the people going to the correspondence courses that are having the trouble, or is it the people that are going to the in-person classes that are having trouble, or is it not what's the term, statistically relevant number? Yeah, significant.
For thought on this in the day and age we're living in. This meeting is remote, and wasn't it Texas passed I got a notice a while back that physical attendance is not required for this meeting anymore. Is that right?
Well, that is related to some other issues,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
yes, no one has to come.
This is the world we live in. We're trying to figure out how to operate and communicate and have multiple locations in multiple states and multiple countries. Yeah. It's a bigger ask to get somebody into a classroom. Now you've got to have those classrooms. Somebody's got to provide those classrooms.
Well, we're talking about
But they're
classroom
in the
and
classroom right now.
online,
Yeah,
not
here
just
or
in
there.
person. I don't think we could, I would love to do in person, but I don't think that's reasonable to do in person because you have too many people in outlying areas.
Yeah.
That'd be too hard to find that education or burdensome to get that education, especially in those rural areas of the state. So I don't think you could do that.
I was gonna, I know state has some data. I don't know at what point you would like us to kind of share what we've come
Sure.
up on this issue, but I know we've put together some things.
Yeah, that's.
If you've got numbers, great.
Well, I don't have numbers in terms of those with complaint filed and how they obtained their education, but I can tell you that going back 4 years, which was when this new 8-hour SOP legal and ethics course went into effect. Prior to that, we had the 2 separate courses, right?
Mhm.
So going back to 2021, 26% of those that renewed took it via classroom, but we don't have a distinction of whether that was classroom in person or classroom online. 22% took it via correspondence, and 52% took it online. And then as your education director, I feel like I do want to share a couple of things with you. Of course, this is your decision, this committee, but just baseline, and this is what I told the subcommittee as well. There is no science or data that supports that classroom learning is more effective for adults. I'm just going to put that out there. The evolution of the different learning techniques and styles is a result of understanding more about how adult learners learn. That does not mean that you have to go one way or another. I just want to give you that as kind of a foundation. I feel that it's my job to tell you that. And right now, our availability of options, classroom, we have 9. Online, we have 5, and we have 2 correspondence courses approved. Just some data for you.
So for me, a big part of this is one of the whole reasons why we created this course that we did 4 years ago was consistency. We wanted to be consistent across the board. It used to be we gave them an outline and they kind of came up with their own, and it went 20 different directions. So in creating this one course, the goal was consistency. It would be across the board. So I think that number one, just if we do it online or in person, I think it also helps with that consistency. The interaction that people get when they're in a class is extremely valuable, whether it's in person or even online. Just the ability to ask somebody questions when it's something they don't understand or something that they want some clarification on or something like that. You have that in person or in an online class that you don't get in correspondence. And I can tell you from teaching the class multiple times, I've had so many people that tell me, hey, I've been doing this for 10, 15 years. This is the first time I have actually gotten good information out of this class when they go in person. The whole point to me is consistency. I agree with your point. I think 8 hours in a 2-year period to sit down and take a class. The other 24 plus, you can do however you want. But this one course is the one thing that every single inspector, every 3,700 actively licensed inspectors should have as close to the exact same information that they could. And I don't think it becomes burdensome for those who do it correspondence to just do this one. I know that some correspondence courses or even some online courses, not webinar or not Zoom courses, again, I've seen people go through and click and do that. And I've seen some of them that they still haven't figured out their timer thing. And I can go in and log in and get my certificate within 15 minutes on that 8-hour course. And the whole point is that it's supposed to be an 8-hour course, not let's speed through it and try to see if we can get through it in 4.5.
You've been cheating.
So for consistency, the online is going to be the best. Because it's going to be the same course to everybody.
Well, no, if you have the same instructor.
No, I'm talking an online course
No,
without an
everybody-
instructor. You're
Everybody's
consistent.
gonna have the same coursework.
Yes.
I mean, we
Talking about
know
the whole course is exactly the same.
no matter what.
I would like to just add, we can't pass rules to regulate people who are going to be bad actors.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. The people who have an interest in advancing their career, making sure that they are up to date on the latest information, that care about their profession, are going to put in the time, effort, and energy. I'm with you. Taking away a learning a methodology, right? Taking away correspondence, trying to regulate people to act right. I don't think that is going to be our answer.
But isn't that what we do every day or every time we meet, is we talk about rules to regulate inspectors' conduct and what they've got to learn, what they've got to inspect. So I think that's what we do.
And by giving them an avenue to learn in a true 8-hour setting, are we protecting the consumer a little bit better, which is our purpose as an inspectors committee? Or are we gonna let them be bad apples and take an 8-hour class in 2 hours and still not protect that consumer?
I mean, bad apples are going to be bad apples no matter what you do. It's just,
Right.
it's going to be the way it is. I kind of see it as from our perspective, our goal is to give every inspector the tools, at least consistently, to have, so we're all licensed inspectors. The consumer knows that every inspector has been given all of the same information as far as what the rules are.
Is there not quizzes and tests
Yeah,
there are quizzes and tests that have to be passed in order to show competency in the fact that they reviewed the material.
Yep.
Or somebody did,
So
but we don't know who did.
well, we're not checking IDs anymore anyways, so, so how do you know about this point? But
Well, I just want to bring a perspective from enforcement. We look back on the, like, statistically, like what the percentage was and the amount of complaints we received and how many we disciplined. And, I think it was mentioned about, the form and some of that, that was like kind of a thing back in, 2018, 2019. So we had a lot back then because we had a 25% rate of discipline in 2018 and 28% in 2019. It's been slowly been basically steady between anywhere from 15 to 19% ever since 2020.
And when you say 25% rate of discipline, what is that?
Of the complaints that we received,
Oh, 25%.
25% of those complaints received some sort of formal.
Okay.
not 25% of licensees.
That's what I was.
No, not 25% of licensees, of the complaints that we received.
Okay.
So like, in 2018, we had 84 complaints and 21 of those received discipline.
But how many of those took an online course versus an in-person course?
didn't-
That's the question.
Well, that wasn't, I mean, conceivably in 2018, 2019, probably not that much, that wasn't that available.
So
Where it's more available now, and the statistics are steady. I can say that the form things, it pops up, but it's not nearly as prevalent as it was. It's a microcosm of, we change forms, like I think 2 or 3 times within about 2 to 3 year period. And it just gets confusing for people. I mean, and I think software is more prevalent now than it was back in the day. And, I mean, you're just gonna have people that are just generally negligent, just make mistakes or things like that. And this stats includes the people that, did unlicensed activity or maybe were inactive, that other technical stuff that may not go to specifically the SOPs. It's just stuff that they're just not staying on top of with their license in general as well. So, so the stats has been pretty steady. I mean, in what I've seen over the past 5 years, for sure. Okay. Just to give you guys that kind of information to feed on.
So in other words, are we trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist?
That's would be your guys' decision.
Shannon Gatewood, a couple of questions. Is there any additional requirement for correspondence courses?
Yes.
I know Rondalyn and Mike kind of brought it up of there's quizzes throughout. Is that
Right.
a requirement? Because I know it's on internet.
It's a requirement.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, I have just a couple of bullet points that summarize the requirements, if that would be helpful to the
Yeah,
group.
sure.
Okay, perfect. So some of the things that we look at that we're required to look at by rule include making sure the instructions to access the course are clear and understandable. Courses that are offered through distance education will log out or stop a course timer after 10 minutes of inactivity. There have to be acceptable methods to engage students in interactive discussions and activities. And the course must include at least 4 modules that engage students in interactive discussions or activities. These might be things like discussion forums, scenario-based learning exercises, responses to case studies, or things like that. And then I wanted to also comment that this version of the course that's coming out that you worked on, is the best version of the course that's ever been there. It's got video. I know. But I just these are things you're talking about what's in the course. But we've got videos that have never been in the course before. So just know that with every iteration of this course, it gets better and better in terms of that. And one of the recommendations you could make is to send back to the subcommittee or the working group, like, next time we want you to have this many interactivities, or like get into the nitty gritty of the course components is one direction that you could go.
And then the second question was, I'm a big fan of parity across agents, brokers, appraisers, and what are the non-elective requirements for agents, brokers, and appraisals? Do they have the correspondence option for all their non-electives too?
They do.
Yeah. Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. So we have options. We can, I don't want to beat this to death. We obviously have some different views, and which is good because I don't think a unanimous vote on anything is ever a good thing. So we have options. We can leave it be, see where it's at. We can make a motion to propose. And if we do, it doesn't mean that we're moving forward with it. It means it goes to the commissioners for a possible proposal, and then it goes into a 3-month comment period in which anybody and everybody can put their 2 cents in, and then it can come back up for approval, and we can go yay or nay at that point. We can go through that process if we want to expand farther and get more input on it, or we can leave it be and let it stay the way it is.
Let's do some.
Sorry, go ahead. Real quick.
Before we do anything, we need to find out, is it an actual problem?
Well, how do you quantify if it's an actual?
I think looking at stats of saying the number of people screwing up versus how they got their training.
Okay.
I think the statistics that were mentioned by Mike, I mean, I took a look at those, And the correlation that we're looking for is not there because what we were talking about is during the COVID years, the online presence was huge.
Yeah.
So if that correlation was there, you would expect the complaints to also go up significantly. And based on what Mike was telling us, there's no such correlation.
Like I said, is there a problem? Are we trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist? Which I think we are.
It's a fair argument.
Well, then you need to look at, for those who have yet to screw up,
Or have yet to
Get caught.
get complained on.
right?
But I think we've been doing,
That's so subjective too, so.
Exactly.
we've been doing the online, legal SOP for long enough that I think if it was an issue, we'd see that. I mean, I've been licensed 13 years now, and I've done mine online every year.
I'm
So I'm just saying, I know it's been going on
You
that
can't
long.
also just correlate it to complaints. Because I think there's we have a lot of really good colleagues in our industry. And as many of us have seen, especially in the last few years, we have a lot of colleagues that maybe shouldn't be in this industry. And a lot of it, they haven't gotten complaints, but there's some serious deficiencies in some of the education that some of them have received.
Yeah, that's
So
a
the
whole
question is,
different issue.
how do you quantify? I don't think you can just do disciplinary actions as doing that.
That's just
Again, it's subjective and
it's subjective,
hard to
but
quantify.
that is a stat that, we could look at. That is one that can be produced. Yeah.
As far as complaints, yes.
The stat of, should an inspector be an inspector, that, how are you going to ever figure that out legitimately?
I just want to kind of acknowledge what everybody is saying is that it is important to take this course.
Yep.
And, it's hard to determine exactly what factors are influencing what's happening in terms of disciplinary action. I think ultimately it comes down to the individual, whether they're choosing to, prepare themselves or not. What we're telling them in this meeting and through other meetings is that it's important that you take this course. It's important that you pay attention to this course for your own benefit. And to realize, maybe in the past, this was something new, but we've been working on it hard. The experts that have come on board to work on the legal ethics materials have really brought on incredible quality to the subject matter.
He's not talking about you. Don't worry about
And and the other thing is we look at current issues that are, what's happening in the disciplinary action. If you look at, we have cases that we discuss. We look at issues that are happening, what can we do to help the inspectors avoid disciplinary action? So that's, one of the main purposes for them to help them comply, not get in trouble. What are the things that are getting them in trouble? Those are the things we discuss in the SOP committee. And we come up with these subjects, and the writers, add that to the materials. So this is a product that's been worked on very heavily, very, meticulously for their benefit. Now, the question is the individual, hopefully through this meeting and, through discussion with other colleagues, will realize the value of this education and take it upon themselves to determine, what is in their best interest. Because I do recognize some people learn better in person. Some people, learn better maybe through the computer. They're more comfortable. And I think Jen would, this is her area of expertise, education. So I would listen to whatever she has to say. But the main thing for me is that the individual realize this is good for them and take it upon themselves to determine how to best approach it for their own benefit.
So do we need to look at, you say that there's still courses out there that you can click through in 15 minutes. I mean, and
That may have been changed since, because I know Jennifer and her department have worked on that considerably. It's been, I think, 2 or 3 years since I went and took one of those, so.
yeah, it's,
Okay.
yeah, that's about how long it's been since I've seen that. But
Yeah, I haven't, honestly, I haven't tried since then to see if it would go through. There was one in particular that,
Yeah.
I think I gave them enough grief that they kind of addressed it, but.
So I think. I don't think it's a problem in taking a learning modality away that 50+% of inspectors are using. I don't think that's smart.
And if you want, I mean, one option is, I know Mike, you've asked for some complaint data, kind of comparing those who have been disciplined with the type of education or the method that they've chosen to pursue. I think we could get that data. We could present that at the next education subcommittee if you wanted.
Probably wouldn't hurt. And I think that's one component of it, but I still think there's a big piece of people that haven't been complained on.
Of course.
That, it's just, and I mean, I know you see it, I've seen it. I get calls and emails all the time from agents and other inspectors, with some of the things that are being done, or even watching some of the things they post online. It gets a little interesting.
Yeah, I don't know that the complaint history is a measure. I mean, I've done thousands of inspections and I've missed things on inspections. I've ordered inspection fees. I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
And I've never been complained on to the, to TREIC.
Maybe you should just self-report.
Knock on wood.
Okay.
Even as simple as knowing where your license number goes.
Yep.
I mean, what's like, do we forget
On
that it goes
advertisements
on?
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if we didn't make it so complicated, it'd be easier.
Shannon Gatewood again. I know I took in-person class through TREIC, who is approved through InterNACHI. And when it shows up on my education record, it just says InterNACHI. So I'm not sure if you'll even be able to extrapolate whether they
You might
did.
be able to look at the date though. Because you did it at the
Well,
conference.
yeah, you'd have to get real deep
Yeah,
into,
they'd have to.
okay, it was on July 14th. Was there a TREIC class on, so I don't know if there's a way to approve things with a C, InterNACHI is mostly correspondence, or.
Mike and I talked a little bit about it, and we could do it. It's going to be a fairly manual comparison, but we build into the database the delivery method for the course approval, and that's tied to the course approval number for that provider.
So InterNACHI has.
So we can.
Correspondence and live approval?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay, yeah, if so.
That's been the
yeah,
case in the past. I don't know.
Probably extrapolate then. Okay,
Yeah.
just thinking out loud.
Because course approval number is given based on.
Yes and no. It's the same. We use the same course number. Our database is currently not very well designed for education, but we build in these layers of relationships. I know, right? No, this is going to be fantastic. But we build in a layer for the approval based on the relationship between the class and the provider. It can be done.
Okay.
I probably can't explain it effectively without like this big demonstration of the system, which is not interesting for anybody. But it could be done.
We talk about this a lot with sales agents and brokers in terms of this kind of anecdotal incompetence. Well,
It's such a nice thing.
license holders who say, these people on the other side of a transaction don't know what they're doing, whatever. And I believe that to be true. But one thing that I tell people a lot when I meet with them is twofold. Number one is that we can only set a minimum standard, which is not being really great at your job. It's just the minimum standard, right? For purposes of consumer protection. So that's why we can educate to a higher standard. But the way we discipline is just that minimum. But secondly, I think one of the most concrete ways that we think it might solve this problem is by more or different education. But what we tend to find is that the people who go to education with the intent of learning, learn. And those who go with the intention of not learning, don't, regardless of how they get that, of how they sign up for those classes. But what may, and I always get a few eye rolls on this, and I understand why. I think what might improve this, essentially professionalism, right? People being better at their job, is among the industry, basically requiring it among yourselves culturally, by coming alongside people and saying, that's not where your license number goes. Hey, this form is old. Just kind of the professional correction. Yeah. I think that will go further than more education, different education, kind of these blanket rules. If it was the answer, that would be our job to fix it. But I don't think we have any data that suggests that that is how to help that problem. But we talk a lot about raising the bar of professionalism, and there's no silver bullet, but I think a lot of that is cultural. Filing a complaint, but then talking about it. I'm going to file.
It's in our standards. It's in our standards to, make, if somebody is actually violating the rules, that we have to address that too. So.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just kind of food for thought in terms of, when rule changes make sense and when it might be something else.
And I think as Jennifer suggested, maybe in the next iteration, making more interactive stuff to try to get maybe more involvement may not be a bad idea either. Okay. All right. So I think we've hammered this one to death. Just about.
Close.
Yeah, close. Close. All right. So we can either entertain a motion to move forward, or we can just leave it and move on to the next item. Hearing nothing, we'll just move on to the next item.
You have a thought, like.
No.
All right. Item number 11, discussion possible action regarding 22 TAC 535-220 professional conduct and ethics, including potential conflicts of interest when inspectors refer services to an affiliated company. So this is an item that came back from the last meeting in April regarding a public comment that we received. And it just kind of goes back to the argument of a lot of the rules that are in place are really set for individual inspectors, and the protections for consumers are related to individual inspectors, not necessarily multi-inspector firms. So we toyed around with the idea of going back to what we did back in 2007, which was having a corporate inspector license, or just starting to look at options to shore up some of these potential conflicts with multi-inspector firms and the associated services they provide. So we'll open that up for discussion.
So I would love to have a company license number. I have one for every other license that I hold.
Mine was 8716 when we had them here. I remember that.
Hey, I'm working with a single digit inspector right now.
Nice.
Single. But in fact, that's you just called me. But for one, advertising. Yeah, if I'm a multi-inspector, for which I am, whose license do I put on there? Do I put mine on there? Do I have to put every single inspector's license number on there? It just gets stupid. What number do I put on my trucks? Right now I have my number on all my trucks.
And your guys are driving your truck.
And my guys are driving my trucks, yes. So, is that legitimate? Or does it have to be the license number of the inspector that's driving that truck? What if there's two inspectors in that truck? Your advertising license number rules would just be so much simplified if it was company license.
And I agree. I would like that. However, I will, just as a caveat to that, if I'm not mistaken, and Abby's going to be the best person over there nodding, that would require legislative change in order for that to actually happen, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Which, it's never too early to start those discussions. But I know that that's something that existed in the past and it was removed. So you might face that hurdle as well. But yes, you're looking at a legislative change.
And I think when it happened before, there were a lot less inspection companies that had 20, 50, 100 inspectors. I think that has evolved, especially since COVID and a lot of that, that you have many more firms that have multiple inspectors. So maybe something worth revisiting, and we can attach that onto the 4-hour apprentice thing.
Or even like a responsible inspector, like who's your named responsible inspector or something. I mean, but then you have to go back and, you go look at the licenses and how many DBAs are missing. So then it's like, well, how do you know who's an inspector for that firm? Because they don't all have their DBAs.
Well, I think that would address at least part of the advertising question and solving that. The other question that we have within this is the affiliated services issue.
And I
don't think a corporate license would fix that.
Well, it would make it easier to track, possibly.
So in the end, what are we most concerned with? Are we concerned with the fact that they're doing it, or the fact that the consumer may not know that they're an affiliated company?
It's the consumer.
So if that's the case, and somebody had brought this up before about a possible disclosure, making, if you have an affiliated company with your business, with your multi-inspector, or even your single inspection company, you have any type. I've never liked how people dump that into the service agreement, and it's in this little fine print in the service agreement that I may get a referral fee from X amount, because it is in writing, and by rule it has to be in writing. You're putting it in the service agreement, it is in writing, and you're getting your client's approval in writing, but you're dumping it in there. For something like this, I think if there's a separate disclosure that the client knows, hey, that roofer that my inspector is referring to me may give a referral fee, or whatever services related, they may have a contractor that they refer to me after that is affiliated with their company. Some type of disclosure there that they understand.
Yeah, that's part of it, but the bigger part of it is the company that did the inspection and owns the roofing company, and then sends the roofing company out to do the work to repair the inspector just found, but it's a different company and it's owned by, my son, my wife, whatever. So it's not me.
Well, isn't there a disclosure on the agent side that discusses relationship? There's a relationship between there, doesn't necessarily specify it, but there is a relationship there.
Well, there's some obligations to, there's not necessarily a form. There is a form tied to like a residential service company, that sort of.
Maybe it's a Texas Realtors form.
But there is a requirement in the rules related to disclosure. If you're, for instance, going to receive a fee, I think there's some rules.
Yeah, settlement service fees sections.
Yeah.
But what about the company that's doing work on a house that they just inspected? Even though it's owned, It's a separate company, it's still owned by the same parent company. That's straight up seems to be against the rules.
Completely agree with you.
But
how do we fix it? Yeah. But I mean, how would enforcement,
But somebody's got to start making complaints. But
right.
Well, there is a section 535-224. It says an inspector shall not receive a fee or other valuable consideration directly or indirectly for referring services that are not settlement services or other products to the inspector's client without the client's written consent.
Right.
And that's why I say they're throwing it in that service agreement, little fine print that nobody actually
signed it. They're consenting. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, Shannon Gatewood. I think it goes deeper than that. It's not the referral fee. It's the expectation that I have pressure on me to call out this HVAC issue because I know my boss has an HVAC company that can come and fix this. And if I don't call that issue out, then that can affect down the road of whether I'm getting the right inspections or inspections at all. So it's not necessarily about referral fees and direct compensation. It's about the expectation and the conflict of interest there.
And I will note, and we kind of had these conversations earlier, you know, Amber had the rule up earlier, the 220, I think it's B3, where it says the inspector should conduct the inspector's business in a manner that will assure the client of the inspector's independence from outside influence and interests that might compromise the inspector's ability to render a fair and impartial opinion regarding any inspection performed. There's some similar language kind of throughout that rule. So it may, you know, just food for thought, but it may be that there are rules in place to protect against these situations, and it may be an issue of, you know, complaints. That's just, you know, the rules are there. We just need the complaints.
But the thing is, you can't work in the house for a year after the inspection. So if I did roofing, I couldn't go out and fix their roof for a year, or at least not charge them to do it.
The inspector.
But the inspector can't. But through creative ownership, there are companies that are, you know, using the home inspection to feed their other companies.
And there's not a complaint to be had there.
Right, because technically it's a different company.
But it's creative ownership.
Yeah. I've seen it just like you've seen it. I just don't know, how do we fix it? Or is there a way to fix it from our side?
I mean, is the rule broad enough to say family ownership?
Well, the rule doesn't say that. And we were talking about, you know, the interaction of the various rules in section 220. So, you know, certainly the issue about the individual inspector being involved in, you know, the repairs, that's specifically addressed. The issue about the inspector receiving some kind of payment or, you know, some consideration, that is specifically addressed.
Mm-hmm.
The other issue about the conflict of interest is mentioned in B3, like Abby was saying, and in other rules, you know, that duty is outlined. But then that comes down to what are the facts of the case? What's the evidence, if there's even a complaint? And the thing is, I understand your concern, but the thing is, we're not getting complaints about that specific thing. You know, the complaints we get is about the inspector not doing their job.
Mm.
You know, and maybe the only thing that I can think of is that sometimes the client may get upset if the inspector discloses information about, you know, where they're getting solicited. Like, I don't want to get solicited. So then in that, we would look, is there a written consent?
Mm-hmm.
Did you do it properly? And if they did, well, then there's no violation.
Right.
You know, so that's what the rules currently, how they're working. And again, we're not getting that kind of a complaint. But if we did, then we would have to look at what evidence is available, what are the facts of the case, and look to see if we can prove whether there is that conflict of interest and that the inspector acted wrongfully.
It's gonna be hard to get a complaint on that because these companies are promoting and going, look, you do the inspection and whatever we find, we have a ton of companies that can help you out and make sure that they can get all that stuff, and they're promoting this really positive way, and the client doesn't realize it's a tit for tat because it's happening behind the scenes. So getting a complaint on that, I think, would be next to impossible from a consumer standpoint, unless another inspector sees it and then how do they prove it enough to file a complaint?
You would have to have the evidence too.
Exactly.
Anyone that's
How
not
do you prove it?
licensed, they don't have to cooperate with us at all.
Right.
So if all the information's on the other business's side, and the inspector's
Nothing
like,
they can
I
do.
don't know, then we really just run into a situation where there's insufficient evidence.
Yeah.
The burden of proof in these types of cases are really fact specific, and you have to have some very good evidence.
Problem, we just don't know how to fix it.
Yeah, it's bigger than truck.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, like this, but like this right here, I mean, there's no number on it, but they're not advertising a real estate, inspection for a real estate
Right, it's a
transaction.
warranty inspection. Yeah.
You know, anybody can do that. My 18-year-old daughter can do that.
You got who can do a base inspection too. As long as it's not substantially completed.
And there's so much out there that we just can't, it's out of our control unless it's related to real estate transactions.
Yeah.
Stinks for the consumer because we know what needs to be done. We just can't do it.
Well, the other thing is, I know it bothers you that they maybe bury something in the contract.
Yeah.
But if it's in the contract and the client signs it, you know,
They are
legally-
responsible for it. Absolutely.
Legally, we have to presume that they read it.
Yeah.
Whether they did or not. You know, their signature states the.
Hey, my agreement is not near as long as Apple's.
And a lot of people don't read it.
Yeah.
They get a document, they're told they need to sign it before they get the inspection, so they just scroll to the bottom and they click and they sign and they don't know what they just.
Well, there's a good percentage don't read the actual report.
I'd say the higher percentage.
You didn't find this. Look on page 17. It's right there.
I got one a couple weeks ago.
Jim, it's a lot.
Shannon Gatewood once again. I'm kind of looking for the answer on that advertisement. If it was for a home inspection and the owner of the company is not a licensed home inspector, whose number is required to go on that?
Good question.
And that's actually a valid question because there's more than one
Right, yeah.
company.
I know
whose
3
owner
companies
Is
that-
not a licensed inspector.
Yeah, that they're,
So-
yeah.
Whose number becomes the number that needs to go on that.
The responsible professional.
Right, or is it just
Correct.
anybody, any.
But if it's a
inspectors
multi-inspector
in that
firm,
company has to be, you know, there
yeah,
has to be. a
whose
number.
goes on it? Random? Is there one? Is there?
All? I think it should be all.
185.
Be a long list for some.
But I mean, I think that.
I mean, Tony, do you have, like, if the owner of the company's not a licensed inspector, whose number goes on the
Well, the
advertisement?
advertising rule applies to all license holders. So any communication that is initiated by a license holder or on behalf of a license holder needs to comply with the advertising rule. So the other thing that also applies to a license holder is that they also have they're required to submit a registration of their DBA.
Mhm.
So that's the second step. So there's it's not a direct thing, but they're required to register a DBA if they're using a website that is not in the name of their license.
Yep.
So if that's the case, then the way we've taken it is that they have to, then it has to comply, they have to comply, or their website has to comply with the advertising rule. You know, if it's not registered and there's no way to trace, if we just see a website there that's advertising inspection services and we don't know who's doing it, and you know, then we have to look on the back end when a complaint comes in. Again, we have to look at what are the facts, what's the evidence that we have against the license holder. We can't just take disciplinary action against a person if they're not at fault. We can't, you know, discipline something if they themselves didn't do anything wrong. Because, you know, we have to prove that they did something wrong. And that's where it gets a little tricky in the situation that Shannon was discussing. But if there are so if a complaint comes in and says this inspector did this, and this is their website, then we have that link that we're tying it into this inspector doing this inspection using this website. Well, did you register that website? No. Okay, well then there's a violation there. Did this website comply with your, you know, was it properly disclosed to your license? No. Well, then that's a violation. Then we can tie it into the individual. So it has to be through that complaint.
So if it's a multi-inspector firm and said individual doesn't have their DBA filled out and their TREIC number's not on that website.
That could be a violation for the individual inspector who's that when the complaint comes in again.
So website, printed material, should every the license number of every employee, truck licensed employee? be on?
Everybody that's using, the way it works is that everybody that's using that website is using a DBA. So everybody has to register their license, their DBA of the company. And I think we have an article that we've educated inspectors on that.
I mean, on my website, we're all registered DBA. I've got everybody's license number on there. But I mean, say if this printed right, this flyer right here on in the meeting materials was for a truck and home inspection, whose license number goes on it? If there's 40 inspectors, do all 40 numbers go on there?
They're supposed to.
Essentially, yeah. If the person disseminating it is that person, then their license number needs to be on it.
Because what is it, advertising? What is that? It's blurry.
So if Bob is an inspector and he sends us out his license number, and Bob gets the complaint.
Exactly. So
what if Mike, who owns the company, who's not an inspector, who's blasting it out to all the realtors?
Okay, so here's the thing. The thing is, if you're an inspector working for a company, okay, then you need to be mindful of how whatever your company is doing is going to affect you and your license. So you need to be mindful that, you register. You can't leave it up to the owner to do your duties. You got to register, and you got to make sure that your license number gets also added to the website that's advertising your services, because that's the way it works. We can't do anything against an unlicensed owner because they themselves are not doing inspections.
So like this says, so this says 140 plus team members. So if this was for TREIC real estate printed material, should have all 140 of those licenses.
They're supposed to, yeah. So the thing is, we can't enforce it unless somebody files a complaint against the inspector, and then we find out they didn't register and there was a violation of the advertising rules.
But like I said, coming back to what I think her question is, let's say this gets sent out, it's not for warranty, it's for, we do home inspections. They have 140 people. The owner of the company or the marketing firm of the company sends this out. You file a complaint. Who are you filing a complaint against? Because you can't file it against a company because the company's not regulated.
Because the owner doesn't have a truck license.
No. Well, there has to be an individual name that's a license holder that's responsible.
So there has to be some kind of responsible inspector.
So there's,
there has
either
to-
all 140 of them are have a complaint or none of them have a complaint is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, technically you could file it against those who, because the violation is not against the owner. The violation is against the
license
individual. So if the evidence shows that they're using this name of this company as a DBA and it's not registered, that's a violation. So you can file a complaint against that, each individual inspector. And if they're using this website to advertise for their services, then it applies to them. That's another violation.
The accountability of that's going to be very tough.
Yeah.
That's what he's getting at.
Yeah. I mean, but we're trending more toward the multi-inspector firm.
Which,
I mean,
if, in our next session, if we can, possibly go back to, trying to push through a corporate license again, that may address.
I think,
some of these things.
over 5 inspectors under the same DBA triggers the requirement for a company license, I think.
Well, I think back then it was, even if you did it as in any company name, regardless of how many people you had to have a license specifically for that. Like if you had a S Corp or LLC or whatnot.
That would be fine too. I'm trying to leave the little guys from all the.
But it was minor. I mean, the requirements for a corporate license were pretty minor back then. It was like just showing your, I think, corporate resolution or your DBA if you had it at that point, a small fee.
It was removed because of sunset.
Yeah.
Basically, it wasn't utilized much, and often sunset will analyze the licenses and see what's just not very well utilized, and that was one of the recommendations that came out.
Which was funny because it had just started, and then it got killed. It was in effect for like 2 years, and it died. It's like, oh, it's not used. Well, it just started. Of course, it hasn't been used.
And it just got killed prematurely, I think.
Yeah.
It was a little bit ahead of its time.
Right. That was also when TRCC went away, and
I wasn't mad at it at that time that it went away.
I was like 6 one way, half dozen the other. It didn't bother.
I don't recall anyone.
No, well, I also did, like I said, I don't think multi-inspector firms were big,
Didn't
really
want to pay
big back then, yeah.
if they had a business.
It's,
There were, a lot of times they're just so, so.
Right.
Agents,
and
they may had a business name and they're like, now I gotta pay another fee.
Right.
So there was a lot of complaints about that stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. But we're trending more toward multi-inspector, and then with companies like Inspection Go and IEB promoting like, hey, grow your company. I mean, it's almost like we need to get ahead of the multi-inspector thing and an unlicensed business owner before we start getting in this gray area with complaints and advertising. And we're written so much for like solo member companies. When you start reading through all of our rules and regulations, I mean, they're cut and dry for a solo member, but and we're always talking about what do we do with these multi-inspector companies?
So in lieu of the original conversation, would it be possible to get out an education piece about affiliations with, your inspection company affiliated with a roofer, plumber, whatever that case may be, to try to really clarify that?
I think we could definitely do something like that. I'm looking at Summer, as I often do during these meetings, to make sure that that's okay. Yes.
Cool.
I think we can do that.
I think the more we educate not only the public, but other inspectors that, hey, this is probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
Because.
And again, as I said, it's never too early to start thinking about, legislative issues or changes you'd like to make, so that can continue as well.
All right. Anything else on that item? All right. Item 12, discussion possible action regarding recommendations related to standards of practice 22 TAC 535.227 through 535.233, including 535.230 and 535.232 related to location and ventilation requirements.
We wanted to make that a little bit longer.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I'll just jump in here and say, this is our normal standing item, but as you heard earlier, the SOP subcommittee discussed this. I believe Cole maybe was the one to raise this initially. But his thought is, you've got a lot of discussion about ventilation issues in 535.232 C, F, and H related to like the appliance aspect of that. But you talk about, venting in the HVAC section 230. So I think the question from the SOP subcommittee was, do you want to either move those subsections in 232 to 230, the HVAC rule, or do you want to remove venting from the title of the HVAC rule 230?
So basically, because on the standard report on the HVAC section specifically, which is what section?
230, and it's on the screen.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at just at the actual form 7.6. Section 3, you have heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. But one of the questions was, why was in that report in the section under, which is appliances, section 5, paragraph H, dryer exhaust systems. Why was dryer exhaust systems put under appliances instead of under HVAC?
Considering a ventilation.
Yeah, and since that has to do with ventilation, should we move basically H, dryer exhaust systems, under HVAC since it's ventilation?
And bath fans.
And bath fans
And
and exhaust over range hoods are all ventilation.
Yep, they're all in the mechanical.
But then you get another discussion. Well, then you're talking about the actual appliance itself, or you're talking about the pipe. Okay?
Yes.
And then you're getting it.
We're going in HVAC, not everything that vents out of the house.
But that is
That is
ventilation,
That is
according to
ventilation.
mechanical code.
Right.
Because
It's not about confusing consumers, though.
So you just took the word
And
ventilation out of
realtors.
heating and air conditioning systems?
That is an option. That's something we're
because-
discussing. We want to kick it back here and get everyone's kind of thought on it.
you actually don't have any ventilation inspection requirements in the
Just we have the
HVAC section.
ducts-
They're all under
duct
appliances.
spaces
Yeah,
vented.
Ducts and vents.
That'd be the solution. Just take
I,
the word ventilation out.
that seems the easiest way to fix that.
Yeah.
As
I
an
can see your point.
as an
with
air
the bathroom.
conditioning
I
guy,
only thought about bathroom exhaust fan and the vent and other and dryer being considered ventilation, but you're right. It's
as an air conditioning guy, though, they belong in HVAC, not in appliances.
Yeah. And
Yeah, you could go back to chapter 14 of the code too.
And the other thing is, you know, looking at it from a consumer standpoint, they hand the heating and ventilation section to their HVAC contractor and say, fix, instead of forgetting that there's more in another section. Yeah.
So a dryer exhaust, you're not actually inspecting any part of the dryer.
Right.
You really
Correct.
are just inspecting the dryer vent.
The dryer vent.
It's not,
With this ventilation.
it's not an appliance.
Right,
Dryer
vent.
vent.
The dryer.
Same thing with the
Right.
bathroom exhaust fan. There's,
It's, the whole thing is a ventilation system, yeah, so then it's all under the ventilation, or HVAC, or mechanical code, there's what I'm looking for. So. So should it all be moved over
Yeah, there's a
to?
handful of them there that aren't appliances, but you can't, like, where else do you put them?
I mean, me personally, I like just taking ventilation out of that title and leaving the other items where they are. I understand what you're talking about from a mechanical standpoint and a code standpoint. I'm looking at the report is not designed to, the report is designed for a consumer and to be able to absorb the information. And I think if we start putting dryer and vent hood and bathroom exhaust fans in the heating and air conditioning, or heating, ventilation and air conditioning system, I think it's going to confuse people.
I'd say you're propagating misinformation by having it in the wrong section. Even if you think it's confusing.
Appliances to appliances/other or something?
Yeah, but we can talk about doing any of those things.
Because if we put those in HVAC, the way the realtor and the consumer look at a report, they literally take those pages of the air conditioning, they pull them out and they send them to an AC contractor. So then now all of a sudden the AC contractors are gonna get everything related to the HVAC and dryer exhaust and mechanical exhaust. And that's gonna throw the realtor and the HVAC contractor for a loop.
I'll throw the HVAC contractor for a loop.
Mechanical.
Well, but they're gonna be
have a
like, why
window
am
or
I
a
getting
fan.
all of this stuff?
You mean I get to use the rest of my license?
I think it confuses the consumer.
If you put it as, you know, you've got heating, cooling, ducts and filters, ventilation, and then other.
Or just leave it the way it is, and under HVAC section, you move range hoods up there, and you move bathroom exhaust up there, and you move
Do that
dryer
too.
ducts up there. I don't think, my opinion is that the consumer knows what we tell them, right? I don't think the consumer cares whether it's in the appliance section or the ventilation section. The consumer cares that we have inspected and made sure that the ventilation is properly working.
And one of the questions was, why was it ever put in that section to begin with? Of course, I couldn't answer because it was already there when
It's been there
It's been there forever. It's like, so no one can
That's
say,
the way
well,
we've always done it.
exactly. Well, I don't know. It's just always been there.
All right, so I mean, that's an interesting point. If you leave it heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and you still have heating, cooling, what is it, ducts and vents, I think is the other one.
Ducts chasing vent.
Duct chasing
Duct
vents,
face and
yeah.
vents, and then you put the range hood, the
Dryer,
dryer, and the
range
bathroom.
hood, bathroom.
I mean, that's still separated out. It eliminates
Yeah.
the issue of they're, taking that cut and paste those sections.
Yeah, I may change heating, air conditioning and ventilation and then put them in that order.
I just think if you
Heating,
put
cooling, duct
those
chasing.
three and try to pile them into that ducts, vents, and chases, I think would be extremely confusing.
No, we can't.
No,
do
no,
that.
no, no. We just moving that up to that section.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we cannot do
Yeah.
that.
It would add more letters.
Okay, I got no.
Yeah, they need to have their own.
It was just repositioning
Yeah.
up to section 3. I think it's section 3.
You guys just want a new report, don't you?
It already, that report.
Well, we need to.
Still haven't got people off of 7.2,
I know,
7.4, 7.5,
And it was a 7-1 lately.
And then in the last newsletter I did put out there, just be prepared. There may be a foreign change, just in case. Because if people are gonna throw a fit about it, I want to throw a fit early.
Yeah, so just grabbing, and so then appliances would be dishwashers, disposers, ranges, microwave, and garage door openers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then grabbing range hood, mechanical exhaust and dryer exhaust and putting them.
I think it's reasonable.
Moving it up to section 3.
Yes, I think we had subsection C, range hoods and exhaust systems, subsection F, which is mechanical exhaust systems and bathroom heaters, and then H, which is dryer exhaust, moving those up. Okay.
There's the ventilation.
Heating, air conditioning, ducts and vents, and then those three
another
sections
D
below
or whatever it may be.
The mechanical discharge system.
I don't, yeah.
So
Like I said, my concern was throwing them all in that.
So
duct
basically,
vent.
You can find a chart. Team mechanical.
No, that wouldn't work in ducts, vents and chases.
But then it's more
Not for
consistent
me,
with mechanical code. That makes,
there's
Yeah.
bathroom heaters below.
That would
Also.
be with the mechanical.
Yes,
Yeah, because it talks about DFM requirements
Yeah.
and sizing of the ducts and the runs and all that.
I think bathroom heaters should just be an automatic D and get rid of them.
well, that's what you're saying, like those little wall heaters.
Yeah,
There's no venting in there.
Well, no,
Oh, the unvented gas appliance wall heater, those were amazing back in the day. And we all survived them.
Nice and toasty.
Amazingly.
Oh, I still see them.
Absolutely.
Oh,
I see them all the time.
I see the electric and
They're
the gas.
dangerous, aren't they?
Yes, that's why I said there should be an automatic D.
I grew up in a natural gas heater. We had to take the
I've
match.
seen a couple, and every time I see it, I'm like, I'm not touching that. That looks
Oil
dangerous.
with that.
Built in 1952. It was wonderful. Loved it. The natural gas one, you took a match and you lit the light. And you open a little jalousie window on the bathroom.
I'll put those.
I mean, you can do it that way, but the bathroom, I think the reason they put bathroom wall heaters and exhaust fans because there's so many of those
Ceiling
units.
Combo units, yeah.
Gatewood once again. I think if we're talking about changing that, that's gonna enact a change to the actual REI form. I would love to see a larger discussion on the changes to the REI form.
Yes, we need to
Because
do that.
There's a lot of stuff that can be changed and updated. If we're gonna do a big change, might as well go big.
Yep.
If
Like
we're
get rid of the check boxes. Because they have become invalid. Okay, here you go. How? No electricity. One bathroom is missing a bath fan. One bathroom has a bath fan, but it's broken. What boxes are you checking?
That's why we have decided that you can check all of them.
Right.
So what?
But you have to.
One's present,
Because see if they're getting rid of the inspected box, because I think that's a redundant box. But the other
Yeah.
three, I think, are.
but they've all become redundant and useless and.
I don't think so.
Well, and Shannon, to your point, SOP subcommittee is looking at the report form. That's an agenda item, so.
It is a way for Tony to make money.
Oh,
Check boxes.
Don't give me that.
Oh, he's hating on you, Tony.
All right. Now you're off the rail.
Historically,
That's
we're
it.
trying to get rid of it because people can't write well. They cannot write comments well. So there needs to be a checkbox to give clear notice to consumers there's a deficiency. So that's why it's been debated to be removed. As long as I've worked here,
Yep, I
15
like
years.
the
But it's always remained because we go back and look at, I mean, how well people can alliterate the deficiencies.
Yeah.
And there's always concerns about that. So that's why it's historically remained.
I had a case, literally, where the inspector didn't write comments on each section. He put everything in the wall section. So it was this gigantic paragraph. And everything was like stream of consciousness. And you couldn't tell what was a deficiency, what was a recommendation, what was, information. It just didn't make sense. And, that's an extreme case. But like Mike was saying, sometimes the deficiencies are not specifically stated. And it's hard to figure out what are you talking about? You check the box, but you don't explain it. Now think about if they don't even check the box. Sometimes I think it's going to be harder for the consumer to figure out, well, is there a deficiency? And now you get the other side too. And you get the seller saying, oh, they're overdoing it. They're saying all these deficiencies when they're not. There's certain deficiencies, there's comments, there's information that they can provide.
Yeah. I mean, there's
But you gotta be
30-page
specific.
inspection reports on a 1,500 square foot house.
Yeah.
Just this amount of stuff that people put in there is just.
But on the, you know, disciplinary earlier, one of the things on there was they checked the deep box, but didn't put a deficiency in there.
One of the orders said that they checked the deficiency box, but then in the comments said that everything was fine.
Yeah.
So it was contradictory. So which isn't?
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I think the check boxes have been, once we started going with, you know, especially like the not inspected, every system is going to have the NI box checked. Right?
Could potentially, but.
Should potentially. Can you inspect every inch of the attic? Can you inspect the inside of the
We've
wall?
discussed that
Yeah.
before.
So does,
No, this is just another dead horse we're gonna keep.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
we
just-
talked about
Why-
using comments to.
A lot of the checkboxes you got addressed when we changed the in need of repair box to deficient. That, I think that helped dramatically because there was that
that's
hard
before my time.
language of saying, is it in need of repair? And then it became, well, what actually is in need of repair versus what's comments and stuff like that. So I think deficient substantially helped with that, but I don't think you can get rid of the checkboxes completely. But if we are looking at the report anyway, it's, you know, one more little fun check on your list you get to play with. And the preamble, I know there was some discussion about possibly looking at the preamble too.
Correct.
Get rid of the word further
Okay.
in the preamble. It's in there a couple of places.
Okay. Yep. All right. So anything else on that item of the agenda? All right. Request for future meeting agenda items. I think SOP will be on that future agenda.
Yep, we're almost done. So just option meetings preamble. That's it.
Okay. Anybody else have any things for future agendas?
I do have one.
Go for it.
Shannon Gatewood. Can we look into, so from what I've been told years ago was we don't have reciprocity in Texas with other licensed states because, and the excuse that was given, legit or not, I don't know, was because we had the stringent requirements of any state and everything like that. Now that we're a little bit more in line with education hours and stuff with some of the other states, can we revisit the reciprocity on that? Because I had a guy from Tennessee reach out to me, say, hey, I'm moving to Texas. What do you know about it? You know, reciprocity and stuff. And the affidavits get rid of 80 hours, but there's really no requirement on the affidavit to be legit. You just need to find two people that will sign off on whatever you tell them to sign off on, saying, yeah, I have a license. Well, if you already have the license and you've proven that you've met insert state here requirements for licensing, why doesn't that just automatically count for something? So just.
Yeah, not my area, education, no caveat. But I have noticed that it's not just one state versus our state. There's a lot of states and every state is different. So I think if you're gonna do reciprocity for, you know, other states, I think it's hard. Yeah, because there's gonna be some states that are not gonna be near what we require.
I think we're still those strict.
I think we're still, yeah.
We were by
Wasn't the
far before.
wording
We're
like
still
substantially similar or something like?
Substantially equivalent.
12 states.
Mhm. And we do recognize the national exam, BPHI. So-
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
if
think
that's something that y'all want to put on a future agenda, we can have that discussion.
Yep. It's a nice way of saying we can't talk about it.
You got me.
Rodeo. All right. Future meeting dates. Currently, we have in the books potential for October 20th. Start with that one. Everybody. Oh, crap. Can you do that?
I
already have it on
that
there.
day too,
Thought we already-
so I have it on there too.
Yeah, we've had that
Yeah, it's already
for a
booked.
Yeah,
while.
that's
so
just to
it's-
confirm that still works for everyone.
It's on the calendar, it's good.
Yeah.
You said you had a conflict that day?
Yeah, on the
I do
Port
too.
Chambers Executive Board now on the third Monday of every month. We have our,
Would it be possible to do the 13th? I know it's Columbus Day. We did Columbus Day for the last couple of years. Would it be possible the 13th instead?
I was thinking traffic will be better.
Traffic will be a lot better.
No problem.
Oh, there is sometimes an issue with that, just from a staff perspective, since a lot of the schools are closed. That can be tougher, but not impossible.
Can you move it just to Tuesday, the 21st now?
I'm out the first few days of that week. So I know we've done Columbus Day like the last 2 or 3 years.
So you're saying you're coming in?
This is last meeting.
yeah,
God, it is, man.
yeah, didn't we do Martin?
Don't say that with such glee, Shannon.
I mean, I'm good with the 13th.
I mean, do the 13th or the 27th.
That probably is too close to our, if there's like rule
To the-
changes.
to the November meeting.
So it sounds like it's the 13th.
Can we do the 13th, please?
Yeah, we can,
Pretty please.
we can do that.
Appreciate that. All right, then the January, you all decide on the January.
We've got it on the calendar right now for the 20th.
Currently, that is on the calendar for the 20th, which is the day after Martin Luther King Day.
I do have a conflict on that 19th.
But
I
you're good-
guess, I
but you're
don't
good on
know,
the
it's Martin
20th?
Luther King Day. I'm good on the 20th, yeah.
Everybody else good on the 20th?
Sure.
Tuesday, the 20th?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said we'll be back in Rockport by 5, but that shouldn't be a problem.
With that, we're set there, and we will adjourn the meeting at 11:41. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.